Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to another week of Around the Nest. J-Talk on our way around the Toronto Blue Jays minor league organization. We'll go from AAA, AA, High A, Single A, Buffalo, New Hampshire, Dunedin, and Lansing. Fun as here we are now in mid-May, and as things start to heat up, as performances really start to get going, we're seeing those promotions. We're seeing players take off. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler with the Class Single A Lansing Lugnuts. And so during this week's show, whether we talk to Ben Wagner in Buffalo, Ben Gelman-Chomsky will join us. He's the new voice of the New Hampshire Fisher Cats this year. Ben alongside of Tom Gauthier and Bob Lippman with New Hampshire. In addition, from A Advanced Dunedin, Marshall Kellner will join the show. And then from Lansing, I'm assisted this year by David Fine. He's coming aboard, and David will be helping me broadcast the Lansing Lugnuts games from tomorrow all through the end of the season. So we'll introduce David on Around the Nest here today. In addition to that, a conversation coming up later on in the show with Tim Raines. Tim Raines is in charge of base running and outfielding, if that is, in fact, a word. He's the outfielder and the base running coordinator for the Toronto Blue Jays minor league system. That's coming up as well. And we'll talk about the Carolina Mudcats bus situation. If you didn't hear, from much earlier this week, right from the very start of the week, the Carolina Mudcats bus overturned. It was a bad accident, and thankfully everybody was okay. We'll definitely talk about that on the show, as everybody who's ever ridden a bus in the minor leagues can relate to that situation. Let us begin this week with that conversation with Tim Raines. He stopped by Lansing, and I had the opportunity to catch up with Tim. This is Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, joined by Tim Raines, the Toronto Blue Jays outfield and base running coordinator. Tim, this Lansing Lugnuts team has a ton of base stealers. What's it like to work with such a crop like this?
It's really the only team in the organization that has the speed that can, that are game changers. And we're looking for good things from these guys. I mean, they have the speed, they swing the bat well. I mean, there's some outfielders and some infielders, and we're trying to make these guys aggressive on the base paths and make that speed a part of their offense.
Talking to Anthony Alford, he told me that you were emphasizing that first step quickness. Tell me more about this.
Well, that's the most important step when you're trying to go from one spot to the other, and when you get to the point to where you react to what you see as far as what the pitchers are doing, that's when you become very successful. So that first step is a much important one.
Mm-hmm. Talk about instinctive base stealers, the guys who know when to go and know when not to go. Who on this team is best at knowing when to go?
Well, I think LaCastro right now. I think he has a little more experience than the other guys. Alford, this is his first full season as a baseball player. But then you also have, the Jonathan Davis and DJ Davis. So, I mean, two Davises, and those guys can run very well. I mean, I think DJ is getting to the point to where he's been getting a little better. I think it's just taking him a little time. He's probably the fastest of them all, but, he just hadn't figured out, the pitching and the timing and the reaction time yet. And I think that's going to come. I mean, with his speed, there's no way he shouldn't be able to steal 50 to 60 bases a year, or maybe even more. But I think, he's a young kid. He hadn't played a lot of baseball. I mean, he's a high school guy, and this is a lot faster than high school. So, it took him a little time, but I think he's definitely going to get there.
On Tim LaCastro, it was the play yesterday where he's at first base. Pitcher throws it away, and he scores from first. How much did you enjoy watching that?
Love it. I love it. I mean, that's the part of the game that I love the most is watching the guys run the bases. I mean, and the aggressiveness. I don't have to worry about anybody who comes to Tim. I mean, he hit an inside the park home run and ran through a stop sign, but that's what I like. That's what I enjoy seeing. That's what I like. These young guys coming out here every day to play baseball and showing the kind of aggressiveness that you want to see, that I want to see. I think there's a difference between being aggressive in a smart way and being aggressive in a not so smart way. And he has proven that he's doing it in a smart way.
I've heard of players, whether it's coming home on a throw back to the pitcher or trying to steal on a walk. What was the most daring thing you ever did on the bases?
Well, for me, I think stealing home. I tried to steal home one time with Andre Dawson at the plate, and he didn't know I was coming. And when you say daring, it definitely was daring because he didn't see me coming and he swung the bat. So that was the last time I did that. And but my life flashed in front of my eyes. You know, and as hard as this guy swings the bat, you know, I'm sure he would have took my head off. So I learned my lesson.
Did anybody say anything to you in the dugout afterward?
Well, he did.
Hey, did you score?
He fouled the ball also. I never tried it again.
Oh, man. Talking about the guys who didn't grow up playing baseball, and you mentioned Anthony Alford, spent last couple of years playing a week or so of baseball each year. How is he progressing as you've seen him each season?
Actually, he's impressive. I mean, he's impressed me up until this point. You know, I didn't see him doing as well as he's doing right now. I mean, you know, he came from extended because he had, screwed his knee up a little bit, but since he's been here, he's proven that it's just a matter of time before he really figured this game out. Because I heard that he was a hell of a football player, and I think he had intentions of maybe even going into the NFL draft this year. But thank God he chose baseball because I think he can play baseball a lot longer than he can play football, and he's proven that he's just a great athlete, and he's proven that it's just a matter of time before he become one of the better players in baseball.
And the newest player to our eyes, lastly, Jonathan Davis, J.D. Davis. We've only gotten to see him in a couple of games. Already he's been very active, chopping down a bunt, stealing a base. What have you seen from him?
Well, he's one of those guys that he's a student of the game. He's out of college, so he's played a little more ball than most of these other guys. But and he's always trying to get better in all phases of the game. You know, his defense. We're working on his defense right now. Not that he's a bad defensive player. He's probably one of the best outfielders we have in the organization, and he can play all three positions. But I mean, he wants to get to the big leagues, and you can tell by just being around him. I mean, out of all the guys that I have in the organization, he impresses me the most. He's probably one of the smallest ones of them all. But I mean, as far as skill level, offense, defense, it's just a matter of time for him. And I really see him being a big league player. And if that doesn't happen, well, I would be very surprised.
Rock, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
That was Tim Raines, who joined me in Lansing not too long ago. He'll be coming right back to help out and work with the Lansing Lugnuts outfielders and base runners. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, and this is Around the Nest, Jay talking our way around the Toronto Blue Jays minor league organization, talking with the broadcaster after broadcaster. Reviews such as that. Well, now it's my pleasure to welcome in a rookie to Around the Nest in his first year in AA New Hampshire, Ben Gelman-Chomsky with the AA Fisher Cats. Ben, how are you?
I'm doing great, Jesse. I'm really thrilled to be joining Around the Nest. It's such a great group of broadcasters, and it's a blast to be with you today.
Well, what are the lead headlines right now with your Fisher Cats?
Well, the headlines, I would say, are the Fisher Cats are trying to get back on the horse after a disappointing homestand. They've been much better at home than on the road this season. And then they just dropped 4 out of 6 back at Northeast Delta Dental Stadium on the last homestand. So they're looking to right the ship, and yesterday was a big step in the right direction with a 4-3 win over the Binghamton Mets and Luis Cessa, who's been absolutely a terrific pitcher with great stuff. It was good to see the Fisher Cats get that W. And even as a lot of the better players on the roster have migrated up to Buffalo, guys like Andy Burns and Ryan Schimpf, they're continuing to be competitive, even in a division dominated by one team that I believe we're going to be getting to a little later.
Well, we will talk about those New Britain Rockcats. Let me ask you about a specific play. A double play started by Kevin Nolan and then to John Berti, and that ended a losing streak. It took New Hampshire past Binghamton. How good was this double play to win the game?
It was absolutely sensational, and I actually had a personal backstory to that double play because the batter, Jace Boyd, was a guy who, when he was on the Brooklyn Cyclones, absolutely killed the team I was broadcasting for at the time. Every time he came to the plate, I just had a sinking feeling in my stomach. So last night, he comes up with a potential winning run on base, and I'm thinking, well, this is it. This is how it ends. He's going to come up with a big extra base hit, and the Fisher Cats, even for all of this fantastic work they've done today, are going to drop it. And he hits an absolute smash into the 5-6 hole, and it looked like a picture-perfect hit. Kevin Nolan showed off some fantastic instinct, flew to his left and sprawled to block the ball, picked it up, fired an absolute dart to Berti at second base, and full credit to John Berti. It's so often we overlook the pivot on double plays. Berti with an absolutely terrific turn, and he threw it on to Hobson at first base to complete the around-the-horn double play. And I got about as loud as I ever get on a broadcast. I didn't quite yell, but I was very excited, and I got very animated in my call for sure.
Well, because of that double play, it gave Taylor Cole the win. Cole last year, big-time strikeout leader for the entire country with the Dunedin Blue Jays. How is Cole progressing this year?
One of the things I've really liked about Taylor is that he doesn't get too down on himself even after a difficult start. Yesterday, you look at his stat line, 2 earned runs, 6 hits, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts, and 5 1/3, and you don't think this guy was that sharp. But there were signs of real excellence in his start. His breaking stuff has been absolutely terrific in flashes. His slider in particular yesterday really was giving the Binghamton hitters fits. They couldn't get a fix on it. His fastball was basically the best I've seen from him this season, and he was really looking good out there, just efficiently moving through innings. Only had 1 completely clean inning, but all in all, it was a very successful start for him, and he was in command from start to finish.
Guys who have been in command for you out of the bullpen start to finish this season. Danny Barnes and Blake McFarland. 2 great guys, 2 great friends, 2 of the more unique personalities that you'll meet too. Danny out of Princeton, meanwhile
absolutely.
Blake from the West Coast. What has been working so well for them? What have their strikeout stuff been? Has it just been that they've nasty, or is there something beyond that?
I think with Danny, he's done such a fantastic job in high-leverage spots, and we had one of those yesterday. He did allow an inherited runner to score. He came in with runners on first and second and 1 out, gave up a hit to the first batter he faced, and that's something he is going to be working on since he's allowed a .500 percentage to the first batter he's faced this season. That having been said, I've really just marveled at how aggressive he is. He pounds the zone with his fastball, gets a ton of strikes, a ton of strikeouts, and certainly over the last several games he's been absolutely electric. He gave up a run back on April 16th a month ago. That was his only run of the season allowed. Since then, 17 strikeouts and 5 walks in 12 2/3 innings, and that's just an absolutely lights-out number. For Blake, it's more of what we've seen from him in past years. He's an aggressive pitcher. Just like Danny, pounds the zone. His slider has been really sharp, and his fastball command has been excellent. And that's an underrated aspect for young pitchers, and certainly for guys trying to climb that minor league ladder. A pitcher with good stuff and good command is going to go a long way.
Speaking with Ben Gelman-Chomsky in his first year broadcasting from the New Hampshire Fisher Cats, AA for the Toronto Blue Jays. All right, so New Hampshire's record just fine right now, 17-17, and yet playing 500 ball, you're 9.5 games out of first. The New Britain Rock Cats are 26-7. They've won 13 consecutive games. They're 8-3 against New Hampshire this season. Are they legit? Are they the best minor league team in the country?
I'm not sure how to answer the last part of that, not having seen so many teams. I will say that there's a ton of talent on that team, and it really starts up the middle. Trevor Story, their shortstop, and David Dahl, their center fielder, both with terrific all-around packages. Dahl, in particular, is a real five-tool player for them. He's been absolutely fantastic. Story's been hitting like crazy. It's a little bit inflated. You'd like to see them both take a few more walks. At the same time, there's a ton of just natural talent on that team. The one place where I see New Britain a little bit down, pitching talent overall, Austin House with a ton of saves for them. They're playing a lot of close ball games, but House's peripherals aren't really what you would expect to see from a closer on such an elite team. And so that's going to be something to keep an eye on. Is this a sustainable start for them? 26-7, absolutely fantastic, it's true. But as we've seen them for 11 games already, as you noted, I'm not sure how much of it will be sustained into May, late May, June, July, and August. And certainly, as you know, Jesse, with the way minor league rosters move and change and evolve over the course of a season, anything can change at any time.
Oh, yes. And we've seen that with your Fisher Cats, the players who've gone up to AAA Buffalo. Our question of the week. Go ahead.
No, I agree completely. You know, Andy Burns was hitting very well when he went up. Ryan Schimpf was our home run leader. In fact, he was the league's home run leader when he got the call. And yet, you know, this offense just keeps on pumping out great plays. Shane Opitz with his first AA home run yesterday, and that proved absolutely critical for the Fisher Cats. So as guys move up, other guys have been taking larger roles and really rising to the occasion.
Let's step aside from baseball just for our question of the week. What was your reaction when you heard about the Carolina Mudcats bus accident?
Well, that actually was broken for me by your Facebook post about it. I happened to notice it that way. And it's something that every broadcaster, player, coach, anybody affiliated with a sport like this where there's so much travel, it's a huge fear. And I'm so glad that while there were injuries, none of them appear to be that serious. I was really grateful to see that Carolina's broadcaster, Greg Young, handled it in such a classy and effective way, saying that news outlets could use the pictures, but he didn't want to go on and do interviews about it. And I think for the players involved who were injured, it really brought home that he was there to say, yes, this happened, but he's not sensationalizing it, and he's not making a big story out of what happened to them. He wants what happens on the field to be what people concentrate on, and certainly we have everyone in the Mudcats organization here at Alford.
You can find Ben Gelman-Chomsky on Twitter at BenJGC, and the New Hampshire Fisher Cats currently on the road, nhfishercats.com. They'll be coming back, though, for a 7-game homestand from the 22nd through the 28th of this month. Ben, thank you very much for joining me for the first time, and I look forward to the next time.
My pleasure, Jesse. You have a wonderful weekend.
From AA, Ben Gelman-Chomsky and New Hampshire. Now to AAA and Ben Wagner with the Buffalo Bisons. Ben, real quick, just starting up with our question of the week, what was your reaction when you heard?
My worst nightmare came true for somebody. It's something that I think for everybody that travels in minor league baseball, when you have to do the overnight hauls, you're always worried about. But even sometimes when it's not that late, just because of the way that people drive on the road these days, you're always aware of the surroundings. But, you know, when you see the pictures with the dimly lit glow of lights or turn signals, you know, that's the only indication that you can get from a crash scene. It's I don't know. It's really scary to me, and like I said, it's really one of my worst nightmares, just because you're so far removed from controlling the situation and the environment when you're barreling down the road at sometimes 4 a.m. and we're pulling into any town, you know, at rush hour. Everybody's going to work, and you're in the 6th or 7th hour of an overnight ride. Very scary stuff. I'm really glad that those that were treated are going to be okay in the short term, or even in some cases, the long term.
Have you had responsibilities on bus rides? And I mean that like this. There was one bus driver that I had when I was in independent ball that someone always made sure at 3, 4, 5 in the morning that they were sitting up there right next to the bus driver conversing, making sure that there was conversation through the night just in case.
I don't know. I really haven't ever been told to do that. There have been times where just out of sheer boredom, you know, you kind of meander your way to that yellow line in front of the bus, and You just kind of survey what's going on. We've also been blessed with some pretty chatty coaches since I've been in Buffalo, and even when I was in Lakewood through the South Atlantic League. And but our bus driver for all 3 seasons that I was in Lakewood, it was Santa Jack. He's a real bearded Santa in the off season, but he loves to drive baseball teams through the summer months. And real bearded Santas exist. They're called RBSs. There's patches and conferences and everything. Seriously, it's an unbelievable. These are the things we're talking about. We learned, about 4:30 in the morning between Hickory, North Carolina, and New Jersey. But no, Santa Jack, he never wanted to stop. And in A-ball, we only had one bus. In AAA, a lot of times you're going to have 2 different buses as well. So maybe one bus wants to stop and the other driver can benefit from it, if it's a coffee run in the middle of the night. But chatty coaches or even players, or I know, now with the advent of smartphones and satellite radio and bus drivers that can scan the dial on their own, they can fill the void or even make a phone call on their own behalf, to help fill the time in the middle of the night. So to answer the question long-windedly, I've never really had that label of responsibility.
I've never seen my father's chin. He's got the biggest, bushiest beard you can imagine. And now I know what his job is going to be after this current job ends. It's all lined up.
Exactly. Real bearded Santas.
Let's talk about one of my favorite Bisons. It's foul ball night. Do you have your glove ready?
I wish I had that opportunity, but here at Coca-Cola Field, our top windows are the only ones that crack open. So I've got the solid pane of glass in front of me. So I could never even have an opportunity. We've had balls go off the window here and ricochet back into the lower bowl, but unfortunately, it's all for the fans tonight. Literally every foul ball that goes into the seats, you're going to get a Bisons prize or something perhaps donated already by one of our great partners here at the ballpark, or some gift certificates or maybe autographed memorabilia. But the good news is every foul ball that goes into the seats tonight, when it's redeemed, will earn a fan a prize.
As far as the team goes, there are all those players who have major league experience that Blue Jays fans are wondering about, and it looks to me like Dalton Pompey is heating up.
Yeah, finally starting to get a little bit more of a rhythm at the plate. He's 7 for his last 17 after a very difficult arrival. Really had hits, I think, 4 times. And I made the comment, I think, on this show and other places that I've been interviewed, Dalton hasn't been overmatched too often since coming down. The hardest part for Dalton has been the mental aspect and dealing with, the first time in his career, hearing the word demotion. Every time since he picked up a baseball and played as a member of youth teams all the way through high school, all the way through Team Canada, coming through the Blue Jays organization, specifically even last year, rocketing through the organization, he only knew one way, and that was up until just 2 weeks ago where he had the words AAA relayed to him from a big league manager. So he had to get over that, and he had to get over with kind of that shock factor and come back and had to get past it. Let's put it that way. And he said that over the last couple of days he's felt the best mentally and physically, and it's starting to show.
The same day that he collected 4 hits, Daniel Norris pitched into the 7th inning, looked good in getting the win. And I noticed in looking at the stat lines, Norris gave up more runs in his second start than his first start, but in your tweets you said that he looked sharper in that second outing.
He did. He definitely did look sharper in that second outing. It was the command of his pitches, and he didn't fall behind at all, hardly, in that game. And I thought he was pretty far ahead from where he was in Durham, for that second start. And I got to hand it to him, there was another guy that really was given an opportunity. He pitched well in spring training, and that kind of came crashing down because the numbers said that he wasn't the worst performer out of the rotation in the big leagues. So I think he had to stomach with all the external noise around him that's saying, like, why is this? And then, of course, he's saying, well, why is this? But he goes into the 6th inning and, 95 pitches, and I think 53 were for strikes. And when he left, when he left the ball game, you looked like he had a little bit of moxie. Like, I think he even had a little bit more left in the tank, but he flirted with that century mark. So Randy St. Clair and then Gary Allenson gave him the hook out of that ball game. But I think this is just kind of the beginning of Daniel Norris and turning the page to a couple of strong starts in the very near future. And I think he's a lot like some of the other guys at AAA. You know, he's going to force the Blue Jays to make a decision on him and see where the next step will be in the next few weeks.
Well, that's starting rotation. Let's talk about those guys and how deep that rotation is. Andrew Albers and Randy Wolf and Norris and Miguel Castro getting some starts. And then Felix Doubront goes to the mound, just joining your team. And 5 innings, 1 hit, no runs. I guess Felix looked pretty good, too.
Felix looked good. He said he felt great, and he was so excited to be out of the extended spring training and pitch competitively. And it showed. He retired the first 14 batters that faced him. I mean, it was about as good as a debut that you could ever imagine for a young player or even a veteran guy that's not really even that veteran. He's 27, but already has 5 years of major league experience and pitched in some of the biggest situations that a player can throw in when he pitched in the World Series in 2013. And more importantly for Felix, I think he's been humbled by some situations over the last year and a half, and he's embracing the opportunity, knowing that, again, if he's there and timing works out on his behalf, he may have another shot to get back in the big leagues.
From great news and from guys performing well, let me just ask you briefly about Munenori Kawasaki. I had an off day. I was able to sit back and tune into some AAA baseball and listen to you and Dave Popkin, and unfortunately I was listening when Munenori was hit. Any word about his condition?
He's told me repeatedly over the last few days, including Sunday when we were in Norfolk when he got hit. And 2 things that I want to point out. That was the most direct impact that I can ever recall a player taking off the helmet, and the fact that it was a fastball as well. Guys that I've seen get hit in the past, they've been hard sliders, they've been curveballs. Zach Lutz sticks out in my mind where he got hit twice in one season, and they both were curveballs. So it couldn't, it never had that direct sound of impact and the jarring effect as well. The other thing, when Munenori Kawasaki got hit in the head, one, the impact of the fastball, like I mentioned, the sound and the reaction, but also Mooney was out cold at home plate. So you knew that by the reaction of the people around home plate and summoning the training staff from both dugouts immediately. So it was a very surreal couple of moments until you started to see Mooney come to and clear the cobwebs. He did fly home with the Bisons that night from Norfolk, Virginia, so he traveled with the club. That's a good sign. He, again, has repeatedly told me that he's okay. I think he's dealing with a little residual effects of just dealing with that. From what I understand, too, it's the first time in his career that he had been hit in that nature. And, again, there's pretty large language barrier still with Mooney. It's far and above where it was, even 2 years ago when he first came stateside. But it was a very, very scary situation. It ended positively, obviously. There was no ill will from the Norfolk pitcher, the catcher. They were very concerned about him. But seeing Mooney give that thumbs up as he worked his way to the Bison's dugout was a great sign that he was coming back. And he's been in the clubhouse. He's been doing routine stuff. I think they're just allowing him some time to make sure all the cobwebs are clear.
Speaking with Ben Wagner, the voice of the AAA Buffalo Bisons on Around the Nest, is a player that Blue Jays fans have been waiting to see for a while. Each year it looks like maybe this will be the year that he breaks through. But A.J. Jimenez has continually been injury-prone. He's still only 25. He started to hit. And how's his defense looking now for Buffalo?
The defense, I think, is going to be the biggest progression that he'll make this year. If he can stay healthy. Of course, he's got to rely on his body. Blocking baseballs is something that he's going to have to do and never let up on throughout the course of the year. And I think he's going to work with a veteran pitching staff, which will benefit him more than anybody that he's been able to catch in his previous years as a professional. Because when you've got guys, and tonight is not going to be included because Sean Ochinko is going to catch, but when you've got guys that have significant major league time and not only have their own idea of how they want to pitch, but also within the game plan, they can now work with AJ to get him into that rhythm as well and perhaps benefit him about calling not only his game, but also calling it with a guy that's got a game plan on the mound, which every major league pitcher does when he's out there. So I think that'll be the major place that he makes some stride. Offensively, he had a really, really rough start to the year, not only in Double-A, but also when he came here to Buffalo. But the hits and his approach at the plate, he's been able to barrel up a little bit more over the last 4 or 5 days, which is a positive sign. But I think it's still going to be a little bit larger work in progress for A.J. Jimenez. But I think, no doubt, the organization wants to see him succeed. He's going to get every opportunity in the world as well. And if he can prove that he can stay on the field, stay healthy, and then produce with the offensive numbers and be a luxury to have behind the plate, the way that he's blocking balls and doing the little things, even outside the pop times, because we all know that he possesses a great exchange to cut down base runners. It's all going to be moving forward, I think, in 2015 for AJ.
Good to hear. You can catch A.J. Jimenez, Randy Wolf, Daniel Norris, Dalton Pompey, and the Buffalo Bisons. They're at home. Foul ball night is tonight. Then tomorrow night, Andrew Albert's getting the start. Armed Forces Day is tomorrow. Right? Dog Day at the ballpark is on Sunday. Great weekend to watch baseball at Coca-Cola Field, right?
Great weekend to watch baseball. The names you've come to expect to be in Buffalo's lineup are going to be in there over the next couple of days. And great weather on the docket as well, with special 5:05 start time on Saturday, 1:05 with Dog Day, and my buddy Sammy on the Dog Parade as well, coming up on Sunday afternoon.
Ben, thank you very much.
All right. Sorry for being tardy. Appreciate it, Jesse.
No worries at all. Ben Wagner with the AAA Buffalo Bisons at benwag247bisons.com for Buffalo's website. From Ben and AAA now to Marshall Kellner with the A Advanced Dunedin Blue Jays. Marshall, congratulations. You've got J.D. Davis coming your way.
We do, and I'm here in the press box in Lakeland right now, the home of the Lakeland Flying Tigers, and just saw J.D. Davis take some batting practice for the first time. He made it just in time to get on the bus. This was a commuter trip, so we go about hour and 15 minutes there and back before and after each game, and he made it in time, and he is in the lineup tonight. Batting sixth and playing right field.
All right. What are some other lead stories? What's been going on with their DJs this week?
Well, I think the biggest story is clearly LB Dantzler right now. A 10-game hitting streak, and he's had multi-hit games in 5 consecutive and 6 of 7 overall. He's raised his batting. He started the season. The whole story begins. He started his season, played a couple games, and then went on the disabled list. And since he has come back, he has raised his average now to 315, but he was just 1 for his first 15 on the season. The first couple games he played before he went on the DL and the first couple after. And since, he's only played in 14 games total, but the past 10 he's hit safely in. And like I said, I mean, his average, it's not one of those hitting streaks where, you just go 1 for 4, 1 for 5, and just get the hit to continue the streak. He is on a tear right now that we don't really see over the stretch of 10 games very often, hitting near 500 over the past 6 or 7 ball games. So LB Dantzler, a guy who now with consistent playing time is really starting to showcase his abilities.
There's another player and a key bat in your order whom you sat down with not too long ago. You talked hitting with Matt Dean. What did you learn?
I think the big thing with Matt I wanted to find out from him was, he's always been a power guy. That's been the scouting report on him, but we didn't see it in the numbers until the second half of last year when he hit 7 of his 9 home runs with you guys in Lansing, and he's already got 5 here to leads the team with 15 RBIs. I asked him what's the big difference between, or what's the thing that's really turned his power stroke around, and he said it's just swinging at better pitches in hitters' counts. If he has a 2-0 hitters' count and he gets a fastball, but it's on the outside corner at the knees on the black, he's going to take that pitch. Whereas it's about getting his fastball in his count. So I think he's done a great job of that, and he's done a great job using all fields. His first home run on opening night went to the opposite field. He hit one last week at home that went straight away center field. And they've come at pretty big times. He's hit a couple home runs in the first inning, and scoring first for the DJs has been very important when they've won games. So, and he's shown the ability as well to turn on a ball and blast it over the left field wall. So, I mean, when you see a guy hit a home run to center field on a line, a frozen rope, you know that he's seeing the ball pretty well. And Matt Dean, it's not just been with the home runs. He's hit some doubles and even a triple to the opposite field in right center. So I think Matt's just very confident in the power stroke right now.
Another batter whom we've been waiting to see that stroke coming around. Dawel Lugo has 5 base hits in his last 3 games with the DJs. Is something changing with Dawel?
I think Dawel, the talent has always been there. I think what he is working on is developing an approach at the plate. So a lot of times you'll see him go after the first pitch, no matter where it is. And he's a bad ball hitter as well. He has the ability to take a pitch, not like Vladimir Guerrero, bad ball hitter, but he has the ability to maybe take a pitcher's pitch and line it into right field for a base hit. He's a guy that likes to use all fields. But for him, I think he's been seeing a few more pitches, being a bit more patient. Wouldn't call him a patient hitter right now by any means, but I think when you go down and watch batting practice and you just see the natural ability of this guy, I think it's only a matter of time before that comes around, but he's still working on developing that approach at the plate. And we'll see if this is a blip on the radar or it can continue.
Is there a specific pitch that might stand out for you? And I ask because last year when Dawel was with Lansing, there were 2 occasions where the ball was thrown about shoelace high or maybe even lower, and he just went down and golfed it out to deep left field.
Yeah, I mean, he's done that to right field a few times as well on pitches just off the plate outside, and he'll line the ball into right field. There hasn't been one in particular, I would say, but he made a great impression on opening night. I mentioned Dean's home run to the opposite field, but that was only one of the 3 to the opposite field and right that night, and Lugo was one of the others. Mitch Ney was another. I mean, there hasn't been one pitch in particular, but it's more of just a consistent pattern of doing it. But like I said, I think the more he starts to develop an approach, the more you'll see that batting average continue to rise.
I was in the South Bend restaurant, a breakfast sort of restaurant, La Peep, and I ran into an elderly gentleman who identified himself as Dickie Joe Thon's grandfather. We talked about how Dickie Joe was doing. At the time, he was struggling in Dunedin. Then he looked to bust out of it, a great 3-for-5 performance. Perhaps that could spark something for Dickie Joe. What has he been so far for the DJs to your eyes?
I think you're right. At first he struggled, and that's not totally unexpected. Even with a player as very talented like he is, adjusting to a new level takes some time. It's not the jump from high A to double A, but it is a jump. And he did struggle initially at the plate and in the field, but he's improved in both areas. And I think you really started to see it in the final game before this current road trip that we're on. In the final game of the homestand, which would have been last Saturday, DJs lost 15-1. But a good thing that you took out of that was Dickie hitting a couple balls right on the screws and had 2 hits in that game and could have had 3 or 4. And same thing last night in Fort Myers. He also was, he got the 3 hits, but it could have been a 4-hit game for him. So I think he's starting to see some hits drop, which is good. He hit a few balls hard right at people, and now those are starting to fall, and he's starting to show a lot more confidence at the plate.
From the hitters to the pitchers, Justin Shafer was another guy like Dickie Joe who was promoted up from Lansing. Debuted with a terrific start, then he got rocked around and couldn't get out of the first inning, and he comes back in his next outing, and he's once again fantastic. What has made Shafer so effective in those starts that were gems?
Well, I think you saw in the first start he was around the strike zone. He was getting ahead of hitters, and same thing in Fort Myers yesterday. In the bad start, he was always behind in the count, and Lakeland hit some balls very hard against him, and he just wasn't able to make an adjustment in that first inning to be able to get out of the inning. And you tip your hat to Lakeland as well. they certainly came to swing it that night with 15 runs in a dominating win over the DJs. But I think the key will be, what does he do in his next couple starts? Because you don't want to see a pattern of good, bad, good, bad. You want to see, and that can be the toughest thing sometimes, to establish consistency from start to start. But I think that's what Shafer and the DJ staff is going to be looking for. I'll give you a better assessment after his next start, whether that bad one was just a blip on the radar. I sense that it is, though, because this is a guy who's moved very quickly through the system. Yes, he is a college guy, but he's made strides very quickly and was great with you in Lansing, as you know.
Oh, yes. A guy that we never saw in Lansing was Roman Fields, and I love touching on him every single week, especially as I saw during the spring training notes from Mike Wilner and from other folks with the Blue Jays who kept saying, this is a guy, keep an eye on him, he's going to get up here. Roman struggled in April. Hey, Dunedin struggled in April to hit, batted only .228 in the month. He's batting .306 in May. Was there a specific moment with Roman where his speed really made a difference, where you could say, that encapsulates his talents in a nutshell?
Well, speed is the name of the game for him. And, any ground ball past the pitcher is an adventure for the opposing infield when Roman is running. There's been a couple of errors when he's been running, and I don't think that's coincidental at all. They know his speed. It's well advertised by now, and it's in every scouting report, I'm sure, that the opposing team reads. But I think what he's starting to do better and better is his bunting has even improved from April to now, and he's picked up several bunt hits on the right side. He loves that drag bunt, and I've said it before, I believe, on this show, that he loves that drag bunt past the pitcher on the first base side towards second, and he's getting better and better at that. He's getting more and more confident. Stealing bases now it's 14 and 19 attempts. But I think also he's shown an ability to hit to all fields. So a lot of teams have shaded him to left, and he's hit some line drives right down the left field line. But he's also lately pulled a couple balls into the right field corner. So not only is every ground ball an adventure for the opposing infield when he hits one past the pitcher, certainly up the middle, also any ball into the corner is an adventure and almost a certain double, if not triple, with him. So I think you've seen him use both lines very effectively and bunt. He's just finding more and more ways to get on base, and he's cut down the strikeouts a little bit. He chased some bad pitches in April. Still could get better in that area, but I think we've already seen improvement there.
The voice of the Dunedin Blue Jays, Marshall Kellner. The DJs are 15-19. They're 6 games back of first place Daytona, and they're currently on the road. This weekend they're playing at Lakeland against the Flying Tigers through Sunday. Then it's right back home, 7-game homestand against Tampa and St. Lucie. Marshall, what should DJs fans look forward to rooting on the team that weekend, or that entire week and into the weekend? And what else is coming up at Florida Auto Exchange Ballpark?
Well, what we've got, first Education Day, it's going to be the second morning game of the season for the DJs, but the first at home, and that comes on Tuesday against the Tampa Yankees, an 11 a.m. start. And then we have our second Bark in the Park already. That is coming up a week from tomorrow, next Saturday, May the 23rd, against the St. Lucie Mets. So it should be very exciting. And DJs right now are in a stretch of 12 out of 15 on the road. Now, only 4 of those are non-commuter games, which we just ended in Fort Myers. But it's still a challenging stretch because other than Clearwater, Tampa's about a 40-minute bus ride away. Lakeland's an hour 15, as I mentioned earlier. So it's not exactly the comforts of home for this team. There's been a lot of travel, and I think it'll be nice for them after this weekend to get home for a full week, like you said, and just settle in back again into Dunedin.
And finally, our question of the week for you, Marshall. What was your reaction when you heard about the Carolina Mudcats bust?
Oh, man. I think anybody in minor league baseball in our positions, players, coaches, broadcasters, what have you, who travel on the bus, with the team. Now, our bus rides in the Florida State League, we're very lucky. The longest one is about 4.5 hours at most, and we don't make that trip too often to the southeast side of Florida. But there's some long bus rides in the minor leagues, no question about it. And I'm just thankful everybody's okay. That it really hits home when something like that happens. And boy, I can't imagine how scary that must have been. The big thing is, sounds like the bus driver was going too fast. And boy, I know people want to get places quickly, and especially, like I said, in minor league baseball, where the bus trips are long enough already, you want to get there as quick as you can. But definitely a reminder that safety first, and a reminder to all the bus drivers out there. And there's some terrific bus drivers. We have a great one. But observe the speed limit. That's the big thing. I think you saw that in the Amtrak situation in Philadelphia, where there were some casualties. Unfortunately, luckily none in the Carolina situation, but they were going over the speed limit. And in this case, looks like the bus driver may have been pushing the speed limit as well. So just happy that everybody's okay. And I think it was smart to push off those games in Myrtle Beach.
Agreed.
Just make sure that everything's good, not only physically but mentally. That can be a bit jarring when that kind of thing happens. Luckily, I haven't been involved in it, but boy, I can't imagine what that was like.
Agreed. Find Marshall Kellner on Twitter at Marshall Kellner, 2 L's in Marshall, 1 L in Kellner, and the Dunedin Blue Jays online via DunedinBlueJays.com. Marshall, thank you very much.
Thanks, Jesse. Appreciate it.
For Marshall in A-Advance Dunedin, now I welcome in David Fine, who will be joining me with the Lansing Lugnuts very, very shortly. David, first, welcome to the Midwest League and welcome to Around the Nest.
Hey, thanks, Jesse. I appreciate it, and I'm so looking forward to finally getting out there tomorrow to call some baseball with you. I heard you're quite the presence on air. I've listened. I agree. You know what I'm talking about.
I've received the criticism that every now and then I call games too much like I'm an NPR commentator. I need to call them more like a baseball broadcaster, but it's a blast. And you've been tuned in, but now you get to actually see these Lugnuts in person.
Right, and the team winning those 2 last games against South Bend and reversing what was sort of the going down the pipe trend after such the hot start in April looks like joining them at the right time, too.
The Lansing Lugnuts currently 19-15. Go ahead.
We can jump right into it here. You saw yesterday the second win of the series for the Lugnuts, that Starlene Suriel had those 6 in the third innings pitched. What's impressed you about his game, and this is his second season with Lansing?
Well, the game yesterday, he had no strikeouts in 6 in the third, and he also had no walks. So he was the epitome of pitching to contact. When Starlene Suriel has command, when he's working around the zone to the edges, when he's keeping the ball nice and low, yes, he'll get hit, and yes, he'll give up fly balls, but when he's going well, those fly balls are routine flyouts, rather than start earlier this year when he gave up 3 home runs in 6 innings. Starlene Suriel needs to keep that fastball down. He needs to work to the corners. He doesn't throw in the mid-90s, but his stuff is good. He gets deception on the fastball. He's got a pretty darn nasty slider. There's something about him that makes sure that batters don't barrel him up when he's going right. I think he surprised a lot of folks with what he did last year in Vancouver. He was just signed to a pro contract and immediately assigned to Vancouver, and then receiving a promotion up to Lansing before Miguel Castro got promoted to Lansing. So yes, this year it's taken a hiccup after the great start to the season, but I liked what he showed yesterday, and there's no reason to think that Starlene Suriel couldn't be re-added to the Lugnuts starting rotation, or maybe even promoted up to Dunedin in subsequent weeks.
How is he different this year than last year?
I think he might be a little bit tougher. I think last year when things went wrong for him, they started to snowball. Well, I think he's getting and it comes with years and age and maturity, but I think it's his secondary stuff too that's getting a lot better, that he's sharpening up his slider, that he's getting that changeup better, and a big difference is that he has added a curve. I don't believe he before this year, and now he's got that great 12-6 bender, and he's got some sharp movement on it too. And you give that batter something else to think about, that curve could very well turn into a strikeout pitch.
From the pitching to the offense, Anthony Alford's been a big-time story with the Lugnuts this year. He's gotten on base in 19 straight games, and he has 7 straight games to walk. That talks immediately to his presence at the plate and his patience, but there's 12 other games in there where he's getting on base as well. What has he done to invigorate the Lugnuts offense this year?
He gets on base all the time. He gets on. You put him at the top of the order, and he's getting on 44% of the time. He has drawn walks in each of his last 7 games. He has reached base in all 19 games he has played with the Lugnuts. Now, the next step, David, is what we saw from him briefly in Fort Wayne at the very start of this road trip, and what the Lugnuts saw from him in all 5 games he played for them last year. That is, when he gets on first base, second base, he's going to steal, and you can't stop him. He's got great speed, he knows how to use it, and he's explosive on the base paths. So when he draws that walk, just putting the threat into the back of the pitcher's mind that he's going to turn that walk into a double, Anthony Alford is scoring more often than not. Especially when you put him on in front of those big boppers. Hey, makes Rowdy Tellez's job a heck of a lot easier.
And Tim LeCastro also at the top of the order. He was yesterday. That's a potential plus for the Lugnuts in their lineup, because if you have Alford hitting first and then LeCastro, if he's in the lineup in another part of the order, you have 2 guys who have been on base consistently over the past, well, really since the start of the month.
Something that Ken Huckabee really enjoys about Tim LeCastro is you can bat him in different spots and get different things from him. Anthony Alford's got great power. We're not going to see the same kind of extra base power from Tim. So if you bat Anthony Alford third, put Tim LeCastro first, he knows, get on, let Anthony drive me in. You bat Anthony Alford first and Tim LeCastro second, he knows my job is to move him over, whether it's a hit and run, whether it's dropping down a bunt, whatever I need to do, hit it to the right side. I can do that because Tim LeCastro is a great control hitter. And if you put him ninth, as Huckabee has really enjoyed, you spark the top of the order with a guy right there at the bottom, just when the pitcher is about to let up. Tim LeCastro is getting on. He fights through the count. He is the toughest batter to strike out in the Midwest League. So he's either making contact, drawing a walk, or, and this is the weird thing, he's got a magnet for baseball somewhere on his body, because he's been hit by 12 pitches this year. He was hit in each of the 3 games against South Bend. He leads the minor leagues in getting hit by pitches by 4. The guy who's second in all the minors has only been struck by 8 pitches. Tim LeCastro has been hit more than team country. It's just another guy who gets on, who's a stolen base threat, because he has 13 steals this year. LeCastro and Alford, whether they're causing trouble at the plate or on the bases, and let me add in, too, both of those guys are superb defenders, Alford in center field, and LeCastro is the magic man at second base. You hit the ball near them, they're going to get there, and they're going to make the play.
And LeCastro, he's hit by 3 of the 4 games against South Bend. I know you remarked on the air yesterday that I think it was around the 6th or 7th inning that LeCastro, who was leading off, had not been hit by a pitch at that point in the game, and that was somewhat strange. He was hit by 3 pitches in a game earlier this year. Is it his batting stance, or where he is close to the plate?
Maybe, because he does stand a little bit close, and then he turns into every single pitch. But when you see the pitches that hit him, they get him square. I've been talking to other broadcasters, and they'll say to me, I thought he was leaning in, but we're getting him in the back. We're getting him in the back leg. These aren't pitches that are close to the inside corner. There's something about him standing in, and then the pitcher trying to work inside. It gets away, and he's on base again. And it's a weapon. I've asked Ken Huckabee. Let's say bases are loaded. It's Game 5, Midwest League Championship Series. You're down by 1. You've got him on the bench. Can't you just pinch hit for him and say, Tim, get up there. Get hit. Tie this game up. Because he's got a way to it.
Rowdy Tellez has also been part of the success for Lansing, a very strong hitting team, second most runs scored in the Midwest League. We saw him 2 games ago go for 3 doubles in a game. He was 4 of 5, a home run, 10 total bases in just 1 game. Rowdy's been very much a key in the middle of the order for Lansing this year. And how has his power progressed throughout the season, or has it stayed similar?
No, it's definitely progressed. From the very start of the season, David, he is A, down on his strikeouts, B, drawing more walks. So he's getting deep in accounts, but he's not going down. And he's using the field. That's my C. He's using left center. I spoke with a scout a little bit earlier today, and the scout said that he believes Rowdy Tellez is the best hitting prospect in the Midwest League, that he has not seen another hitter as good as Rowdy in the entire circuit. He said,
why?
The comfort that he stands at home plate, the way he uses the whole field and power to all fields, you can't pitch to him right now. You just can't work to him. And he's just 20 years old. So the scout loves Rowdy. The teammates love Rowdy. The only guys who don't love Rowdy is who's ever on the mound having to face him.
He's already close to beating his previous yearly high in the minor leagues. It's only been 3 seasons he's been in the minors, but he had a total of 6 home runs last year between Bluefield and Lansing near the end of the year. And then already this year with Lansing, he has 5 home runs after he had 43 RBIs this year. He's already halfway to that with Lansing. How realistic is it that he gets a promotion up to Dunedin, or potentially could even make it as high as AA by the end of the year?
I think AA is out of reach. I think that it's very realistic that he gets sent up to Dunedin. The DJs have been struggling with their offense. He can help that out. And, hey, the better he does right here in Lansing, the more certain it is that that promotion is coming. It could be around the All-Star break. We'll see. But if I'm a Midwest League manager, I am voting Rowdy Tellez to start for the Eastern Division at first base. He'll have competition from his teammate Ryan McBroom for that, too, because McBroom's batting .318. But Rowdy's good, and he has worked to turn himself into a much better defensive player. He'll steal a base on you if you're not watching. There's just something about Rowdy Tellez that he gets up there and there's this presence when he steps in. It's been a blast to watch. I'd like to add this too. Last year, the Lansing Lugnuts home run leader for the entire team, Matt Dean, hit 9 home runs. This is a tough home run lead. Dean has great power. It is tough to hit the ball out in Lansing. It's tough to hit the ball out where the Lugnuts currently are in West Michigan. It's tough to hit it out in Bowling Green if you're not hitting it down the line. And yet there's Rowdy with 5 home runs. He's going to hit many more before September arrives.
One last thing to touch on you, Jesse, real quick, is that as good as Lansing has been throughout the year, and this month of May, the team's losses in the pitching has, at least on the relief side of it, been suspect at times. I don't know if you realize that Lansing, in 12 of its 13 games this month, has allowed a run in the 7th inning or later. The only time it didn't was May 7th against Fort Wayne. How big of a problem is the bullpen for the Lugnuts right now?
The bullpen's going through a hiccup. The bullpen has been sliding this month. As a matter of fact, the pitching ERA as a whole, 5.30 in May, 2.61 in April. And the bullpen's still 2.81 earned run average overall this year. The starters have an ERA near 4.5. I think the pitchers as a whole just need to get together, figure it out. It's one of those hiccups. It's a tough spot. And get those guys back to it. Jose Fernandez just came off the DL, so he's going to get his sea legs beneath him. Phil Kish is ironing things out. Mark Biggs has been better and better. Andrew Case has been getting better and better. So I don't worry right now as much, but it's true. They need those shutdown innings because otherwise it gets really tough to win when your pen isn't putting up goose eggs.
Thanks again for having me, Jesse. You let me interview you today. That's something that might not happen too often.
No, David, right? Starting next week, we are going to go the opposite way. You're going to be our Lansing Lugnuts insider. David, thank you very much for joining me. It's time to wrap up another Around the Nest. So, for David Fine with the Lansing Lugnuts, for Marshall Kellner with the Dunedin Blue Jays, and also with Ben Gelman-Chomsky joining us from AA New Hampshire, and Ben Wagner from AAA Buffalo. Tim Raines also part of the show is an interview early on. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler. This has been Around the Nest. Enjoy the baseball.